I'd like to call the meeting to order. You would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. But I'll do sure. So very quickly, board members, I'm going to do roll call to see if there's anyone online. I know Diane's on the lookout for it, but we'll do roll call just to be sure here. So please say here if you're here. Kristen. Here. David G.
Here.
Annie.
Here.
Tyler.
Here.
Christine.
Here.
Kathy.
Here.
Patty had told us she would be absent. She's not online. Okay. Rebecca.
Here.
Awesome. Betty.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Kelsey. Is she online at all? Not seeing her right now. So, okay. David Twitchell had said he may not be here either. Oh, Kelsey is. Okay, we'll wait just a minute. And while we're waiting, Esme.
Here.
And it's Eric here tonight.
Here.
There he is. Thank you. So we're just waiting on Kelsey. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. So I'm going to mark you here.
Thank you.
All right. And no David Twitchell, right, Diane? At least not at this point. Okay, perfect. So we will do voting through roll call.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody about what our core values are. And those are integrity, perseverance, family, respect, collaboration, and trust. These core values help us to support our mission of being a caring school community dedicated to excellence, and also our vision of being a safe, dynamic learning environment where people of all ages will think, aspire, and participate as responsible citizens in an ever-changing global society. This meeting tonight is being held both in person and virtually through Zoom in compliance with RSU number 38 policy BED, remote participation in school board meetings. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the maranacook.org YouTube channel. For citizen comments and public participation, again, in accordance with RSU 38 policy BEDH, public participation at school board meetings, the following guidelines will be followed. For those attending via Zoom, you'll notice that the microphones will be muted except during the identified portion of public comments. At this meeting, that's number 5. If you're viewing on Zoom and would like to speak during the comment time, please use the chat feature and notify Diane McGregor, and she will communicate with me. In-person speakers, please sign up on the sheet on the clipboard by the door. Please put your name and the town that you live in. If time permits, priority will always be given to individuals who are residents of our town. If time permits, when all residents have had a chance to speak, the board will permit non-resident comments. We ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. And if someone who has had a similar view of yours speaks ahead of you, please reference their comment rather than repeat the same comments. Citizen comments should be directed to the board. We want to hear from all our stakeholders and ask that you be respectful with your constructive comments. I would also like to clarify how we address concerns of the public that may be brought up at this meeting. In accordance with RSU 38 policy BEDH, we welcome all respectful comments and concerns, and we ask that you not use any derogatory language or use names of or identifying comments of any district personnel or students. We cannot discuss specific personnel matters in public, but we can listen to broad concerns that folks may have. All speakers are to address the chair and direct questions or comments to particular board members only with approval by the chair. The board will hear and record the comments and questions, but will not debate the matters at this meeting. Board members' questions must be addressed through the chair. Following the meeting, we'll take time to research and gather information on the matter, and the next board meeting will follow up with information that we have found. The public is always welcome to submit written comments on school and educational matters to the board or to the superintendent at any time. Again, thank you for coming tonight. So do we have any additions or adjustments to the agenda by the board or the superintendent?
I do have one, if we can make it number 4G. It's to accept the resignation of Rosemary Baker, middle school teacher.
Is that okay with the board to add that to the agenda?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, so for our action minute items tonight, the first one is, we have a motion for approval of the minutes of April 5th.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 5th.
Second. So it's been a motion and seconded to approve the minutes of April 5th. Is there any discussion? I think, do you have a?
Oh, there, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. if you want.
Okay, so, if I can find it.
Yep.
On the minutes, I think it's right before, it's on page 3 of the 4, the paragraph right before number 9. It says, what Mount Vernon resident Leslie Marco had made some comments, and the part that says there are staff that are horrified that we don't have one, and staff who feel incredibly safe, that should say incredibly unsafe. Number 9, the paragraph right above number 9. See where it says Mount Vernon resident Leslie Marco. So instead of saying incredibly safe, it should say incredibly unsafe. Okay, thank you. Any other corrections or comments about the minutes? Okay,
All right. Kristen,
yes.
David G,
Abstain.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Abstain.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
and David's absent, Esme,
Abstain.
and Eric.
Yes.
Yep. that's it.
So I just want to ask those of you that abstained, is that because you were absent? Is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is a discussion about the 2024 graduation. So I just want to explain that last week we had some folks that came to talk about the graduation of 2024 and brought up some concerns. And like I said at the beginning of the meeting, we take those concerns into, we write all those things down. We talk about them. Jay and I usually try to figure out where we're going to go with that. So we decided what we would do this week is put them back on the agenda for further discussion. I do want to clarify one thing that I said last week. I said that the survey that was done, that was sent out to parents, I used the term statistically insignificant. Let me just explain to you what I meant by that. I did not mean that the survey itself was insignificant. I just meant that out of 88 students that were in the class, only 36 of those students responded to this survey. So when you're talking about less than 50% of the group that you're surveying responding in statistical terms, that makes it statistically insignificant. Not that the information is insignificant, but the statistically to really look at that kind of information as a valid data point is not as significant as it could be if you had a larger response to the questions. I just want to make sure that that I clarified that. So we did have some issues that were brought up. Jay and I have talked about those, and we'll have some discussions on those. So the first one was about the number of tickets.
So the seating capacity in the gym is 650 people. So I was just playing with numbers, and obviously nothing is carved in stone, but playing with numbers. If we were to give, let's say, 3 tickets per student, that would be 264 seats. Plus, you've also got to add in your graduating class of 88 to that. So we're fairly confident that the number of tickets that we could give would probably range from somewhere between 3 and 5. If we did 5 tickets, that would be for a class size of 88. That would be 440 tickets. And then again, add in your 88 students that are there. And then you'd be looking at somewhere around 120-ish tickets that you would probably want to use for staff, special guests, etc. We talked about a little bit about floor seating and doing assigned seating versus just like there was a lot of talk about like you show up and you get your seat as quick as you can. So we talked about floor seating probably being numbered and assigned, and we probably do some sort of random drawing with students to make sure their parents or whoever they choose are getting 2 tickets on the floor. And then again, bleachers would probably be a first come, first serve. Again, these are just ideas and nothing has been fleshed out. We did also talk about, we would make sure that there's a handicapped accessible seating that would be designated, and we would also have that in our parking lot for that event as well. So there is a lot of moving pieces there. I think we can accommodate. It's going to be a lot, you know, being very honest, it's going to be a lot of work for the principal's office to kind of manage all of that. But again, I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it ideal? In my opinion, probably not. But it, you know, it could be done. I guess is the way I would say that. Michelle LaForge went to a meeting with at the Civic Center yesterday, I believe it was. They have a meeting to talk about graduation. And they do count how many people kind of come in and out for the most part, not an exact number, but they can give you a rough. So they had, I believe it was 840. They had counted 820 at last year's graduation. And that doesn't count the students, I don't believe. It was everybody. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michelle. So that just gives you an idea of how many people you're kind of looking at coming to graduation. And they were a class of 92. Yeah. So, and that's something else to think about. Like we do have some middle school classes that are 100 plus. So when you're talking about as students roll up into it, you're probably going to have to adjust your ticket counts based on the number of students that you have. So just like things we're looking at, I also want to quickly mention, and I hope it's okay that I use Kristen's name. Kristen reached out to me and got some information on the Augusta Armory. They can gather up to 1,000 people in that space. They do have parking. So what I'm hoping to do, I was kind of playing phone tag the last couple of days with the gentleman. But what I'd like to do is actually go there with the eye of, could we actually hold graduation here? I kind of need to see the space and visualize, and can it be done? So we are going to take a look right after April vacation at the Augusta Armory. And I can't promise anything, but we'll go look at it as an option and see what we can come up with. So I thought that was really nice that she reached out and grabbed that information, sent it along to me. So thank you, Kristen, for doing that. I appreciate that. So like we're trying to look at, you know, what's viable options here. So I'll stop there.
I'm just going to ask you a question
Sure.
about that. So if we did, if it worked out, and just keep in mind that we're still talking about this. We're still thinking about, you know, what options we have. We may look at some options of doing something outside. We don't know yet. We're just trying to find the options that are going to best fit. But I was thinking, and I'm asking Jay, if we did choose the Armory, would that give us more flexibility in the date so that we wouldn't have to worry about those 5 days of school after vacation?
Right. So I need to talk to Dan.
Not vacation, graduation, sorry.
The information Kristen got is they booked their calendar beginning in August. So this fall, they booked their calendar for the next year. So that's my only one concern is, can we get the date that we want? And I think if I have a conversation with him, I'll have a better idea is, can we get the date we want or as close to that date that we want? So again, we just have to keep doing research on it. So,
Sean?
I just know holding functions at the Armory, they're generally pretty flexible. Yeah. I've held a number of events there. They're very flexible on their dates. I mean, I've booked stuff a few weeks out even. Yeah. So.
Yeah,
They want it to
fairly
be
confident.
used.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably even maybe book a couple dates.
Yes.
I'd be willing to bet.
Yeah.
So a lot of problems.
Any other questions or comments for discussion from the board?
So,
Go ahead.
so to be clear, if we found like say if the Armory did work, there's no reason why we couldn't re-vote to change like.
Yes,
Right.
right, we have time to,
Right.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we do have time to continue discussing and re-vote if that's what the board wants to do, if we, so. One of the other things that came up and has also come up in some phone calls that I've received this past week is about why we didn't want to do remote days so that we wouldn't have to have those makeup days. So I'm just going to leave that for the board to talk about. Why did we say we weren't going to do remote days? Betty?
I don't know why we didn't go with remote days this year. But I do know that we worked really hard a few years ago before the pandemic to get remote days on school snow days. So I'm not sure why we would go away from that when we worked so hard to get them in the first place.
Christine?
I think one of the reasons I could be incorrect about this, but I think there was a person who came and talked about the hardship to parents having to have their kids at home. Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why people thought remote days were not optimal.
I think sorry, I'm over
Go
here
ahead.
today. I think there's a lot of factors. Obviously when the remote days were worked on previously, COVID hadn't happened. And I think that we probably learned from COVID, although, remote days in this situation, there'd be, 5-6 days, I would hope at the very most. So it's not comparable to the COVID, half a year, but I still think that's a long time, a week. There's kids that get services that they can't get at home. You have to think about the little kids that are on a screen for hours a day. I think there's a lot of, we could go through the list, but I think there's quite a few. Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe.
Annie?
I'll just say I'm not outright opposed to remote days at all. I will say that the bulk of parents that I heard from are all parents of older children, juniors, for the most part. And I just want to say there's a vast difference between a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old learning online. It's not apples to apples. So we just have to keep that in mind if we do opt to do that on some level.
Sean?
Well, I mean, I think it's because of COVID, but the remote days, I mean, look at the test scores. We want to talk about facts. They're not great. And even if it might be 4 days, it might be 5 days, but children need to be in school. It's proven, in my opinion. And as Annie said, it's older kid, I heard from a few older, kids with juniors, of course, because it's direct effect on them, but people with younger kids, they want their kids to be in school and they don't want the schedule to be, have to change where there has to be days where we're going to be in school and not be in school. I mean, I think there's some compromises that could happen here and let's keep working through it.
David?
I'm being old here, I guess. But does the state need to really kind of reassess what a snow day is? Because there's been times in the past where a snow day was an inch of snow on the ground that melted by 11 o'clock. Yes, it's slippery, and I know we're being safe, and but is that something that needs to be looked at? Sometimes I think it's like Okay, it's a little over the top of being a snow day.
Do you, just let me clarify, do you mean the number of hours that we have to be in school for it to count as a day? Like if we came at 11 and left at the regular time, that wouldn't be a full day? Is that what you mean? Or I'm not sure.
I mean, mostly like, roads really that bad to drive on. What is it, 5 days? We have,
Mhm.
should it be 3 days? Because I've seen in the past where some of the snow days where the school was canceled, and it really, I thought, well, I could actually go to school. It's just a thought.
Kristen?
So I agree with you. And so some of the times that the snow days have been called the day before, I think we really have to evaluate, when we're calling them and making sure that the roads aren't really going to be safe, not just because maybe the weather station is making a big deal about it. And I know it's really hard to tell whether it's, weather, like how can we, put these guidelines around weather, which yeah, I just think I agree with David. Sorry.
Sean?
And then the other thing is, there was a comment made to me, well, the state didn't crack down these last couple of years, but there's a memo, there's guidance somewhere that they are gonna crack down, and I actually did call and ask the questions for myself, and they said, yes, we are cracking down on the schools, and they need to be ready. So I just want that on the record, that's why these last couple of years it was flexible, because everybody was letting things go with the wild, wild west because of COVID, but hopefully those days are over.
Tyler?
I'm gonna loop back to graduation for a minute.
Thank you.
I think given, what the data we had from the last couple of years where we're exceeding capacity in the gym, I think the district has grown beyond the capacity of us to use our gym anymore. I think we need to recognize that. I mean, when I graduated in 18, the gym was packed. I would say we probably were over capacity in the gym. And I had family members that couldn't come. And I think with the fact that we've said we can't stream it, we can't provide an option for parents or family members that can't make it in the gym, then we need to move on. We need to move beyond it. Whether that's at the Civic Center or the Armory, I don't care. But I think it's time we move beyond having it here on campus.
Christine?
I agree with that. And I was surprised and affected by the number of students. And I'm always a little bit mindful that there are probably some students who maybe wanted to say something but couldn't come in or didn't feel comfortable, whatever. But there were a lot of students who said, we don't want to have graduation in the gym. And I was surprised by that because I always thought that that was such a nice thing to have your graduation in your high school gym. But I was really influenced by what they said, and I do think we should consider off campus, and we are, right?
Right.
Sean?
I don't think, well, I guess I'm speaking for myself, I'm not opposed to having it off campus. What I'm opposed to is having it off campus and upsetting the apple cart for 90% of the district. I think there's other avenues to look at. And the Armory, having it outside, I mean, there's other schools I investigated. There are other schools that do it on their football field. Does it cost a little bit more money? If we want to spend a little bit more money? Yeah. Can you have it streamed in the gym? You could. There are companies that do that. It's expensive, but it can be done. So none of these things, it's not that they can't be done. It's how much are we willing to spend to accommodate. That's what it comes down to. Pretty much anything can be done. It's how much are you willing to write a check for to find the people to do it.
Betty?
This is very personal for me, but climbing bleachers would not be an option for me. And I'm not sure that there's enough seating on the floor to accommodate all of those people who find climbing stairs on bleachers difficult and dangerous. Having the seating at the Civic Center is completely different than having seating on bleachers in the gym or on a football field or wherever we would have it here. And second, parking. Parking, graduation cars are lined up all the way down to the road on those days. So that's something else we need to consider.
Sure. Just for a recap, the reason that, so in order to have graduation at the Civic Center, we have to have it. How are the snow days impacted by it? I just need a recap.
So if we were, the only date available for us at the Civic Center would be that Tuesday, which is the 3rd. Kristen, what was the date?
I think it was the
The 8th, wait,
No,
for
it
this
was
year
the-
was the 8th.
Next year was the
The
8th?
2024 graduation date was the
Yes.
8th. We just did that day, right?
Yeah, that's, so if we wanted to use the Civic Center, we would have to do it on the 4th. It would be the 4th, which is the Tuesday of that week. If we do that, and we still have the last student day before we talk about storm days would be Friday, then we could be 5 days out graduation wise. So, so we would be looking at, we could have 2 regular old storm days, so to speak. To bring us to Tuesday, that would keep us in line for graduation. Anything after that, we would have to make up those days. And I'm just saying it, and you guys do what you want with it. If you wanted to say, well, let's put in a couple of remote days, just like, let's say 2, then we could have 2 storm days and 2 remote days. We don't have to make up the remote days. So we'd be able to stay within our 5-day window for graduation.
Which is a state requirement.
Which is a state requirement.
thank
That's actually a law, so.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Tyler?
This is a novel idea, and this might be a discussion for next year. Why can't we pull the whole calendar back a week and start school a week early?
Yep, actually, that was similar to what Chris and I were talking about. I would have to go back to CATC because you can only have 5 dissimilar days. Yeah, there's a lot of moving
Yeah,
parts. It's not that it couldn't be done, but I would have to do some work with CATC to be able to pull that off. Yeah, so that would be our 5 dissimilar days if we're starting early, but again, depending on when we do workshop days and such, we might be able to finagle something too, so, but I'd have to go back to CATC, the entire, all the schools that go there, so like Gardner, the RSU 2 schools, Winthrop, and I'm forgetting somebody, Erskine goes there, Tony, right, exactly, so I'd have to go back to them to see if we can make that work, so.
Well, and I will say, I think it's mainly in Southern Maine, they sort of have the hybrid schedule, Jay, that you were just speaking about, where they do 2 storm snow days and then 2 remote. I think it's every other, and that's been successful down there as far as trying to keep people happy.
Any further discussion? Okay. So we'll keep talking about it because we have time to consider. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
sorry.
I just had a quick question. This year we did like an extended hour of school for a week. Is that completely out of the picture too?
That would be, you have to get a waiver from the state to be able to do that. And you can only do it to make up a storm day. So we would have to use a storm day and then schedule it after that. And we have to put in a waiver and get approval before we can actually do it. So that it's a process to go through that.
Anything else? Okay,
That's a good
so
question.
we'll continue to keep this discussion.
Oh,
Because Kelty, not yet. Citizen comments is number 5. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is second reading of policy IHBB, gifted and talented education, and IKB, homework guidelines. Any discussion on either one of those?
The one change in the homework guidelines, the should to the could,
Oh, did it not get done?
No, I was just wondering, since I wasn't at the policy meeting, if I could have a little bit of explanation. I know should and could between why that was changed.
Let's see, where is that?
That is down.
No, this is the old one. Hold on.
It's
Page
section J, I think.
13.
Wait a minute, why don't I have it in here?
Page 8 to 13. And J.
Right here.
Oh, there it is.
Sorry, I didn't put it on the back.
It's in
side.
the F, yeah, letter J.
So it's, oh yeah, J.
Yep, so the discussion and anyone that was there, feel free to jump in, but it was just, would made it sound like it was mandatory, whereas could offered flexibility.
Should,
Yeah.
not would.
Should,
Right.
Okay.
yes, right.
What, yeah, it was all about trying to give some flexibility that it's not mandated, but you can if you want to.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I'm on the policy committee, and one of the things that we had quite a bit of discussion about is if you look at A through J, that whole section, it starts out with the board expects that homework will be assigned in accordance with the following principles, and then it lists all of these things. So my question is this really policy? Saying that every single one of these things have to be followed? I don't know, that's why I brought it here, because I'm not sure that we really want to include all of this in our policy. Is it more, it is our principles and it is what we think about, but is it really policy? That's my question.
Is it more guidance?
It's more, I feel like it's more guidance. So for example, homework should be viewed as a means of extending learning opportunities beyond the school day.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of just turning the guiding principles from the existing policy into policy.
Is that what we want to do though?
I mean,
Because once we say policy, I mean, these are the things that people are gonna have to do.
right, I think,
And
if
I'm
we
not
look back,
sure.
I mean, I do not like the verbiage in the existing policy about a strict time increase.
That's
But,
why we changed that
Right.
piece of it.
but unless we just move it back to
I'm fine leaving it. It was a question that I had. That's why I brought it to you guys so that we could have discussion about it. It concerns me a little bit when we put all of this kind of stuff in a policy. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Do teachers have guidance documents that they can go to? That's not necessarily policy, but like, as far as when you're giving homework, it should have this goals maybe.
Yeah,
Do
I
they,
would
do they
say
have
yes
like a
in
policy
general.
or a
Well,
procedure
yeah.
book or
Well,
something, some
I don't,
best
yeah,
practices?
right.
I don't know what to call it, but.
In their handbooks, they typically have that kind of something about homework that serves as kind of the guidance for assigned homework.
And in light of that, I would say we don't need it in the policy if it's something that they are given guidance on to do their job. Internal.
Kathy,
any other, go ahead, Betty.
is what is in the handbook, the policy?
I'm not sure. I'll take a look
No,
at it.
or is it something different?
Is it the guidance?
And it's more level towards high school, middle school, elementary school, so you'll see differences across the three levels.
Well, I mean,
Annie?
again, this might just mean that we take it out entirely, but I would suggest something akin to the board recommends the homework will be assigned in, what was I gonna say? I had it perfectly in my head. Consistent with the following guidelines, something like that. But again, then it's more recommendation, not policy. But that does give it a little less of a mandate feel. Not sure.
Any other comments or discussion? Sean?
Well, isn't this to help, like, keep it consistent? Isn't that what a policy is for, so it's consistent? So if you take math class from one teacher, it's consistent with another teacher, not saying, oh, don't take this math teacher because they don't give homework.
I mean,
It should be consistent, so the kids are receiving equal. That's all I would do.
Tyler?
I disagree with that a little bit because I think homework is an extension of what the teacher is teaching. So especially when you get into the upper grades, there is a divergence on how everybody teaches each individual course. And yes, you have to align to state standards, but the way in which you go about teaching that can differ from teacher to teacher. And by taking away students' choice and making it and forcing all of our courses into a box, the ability of a student to find a teacher, especially once you get into the high school level, that meets your needs is greatly reduced. And that's why, like at the college level, you don't see a lot of policies like this because it boxes professors in.
So we haven't actually brought this to the policy committee yet, so we did this a little backwards. We just wanted some guidance from you before we talked about this at the policy committee so that we would know what direction the board wants us to go. So
This is the second reading.
this,
It says on the agenda that it's the.
right, no, it did say second
But we
reading, but we can
kick it
still,
back
we can
to-
still kick it back to the policy committee if
Or
we don't want
discussion.
to. Go ahead.
So if you kick it back, I just wanted to raise a concern that I have as an educator primarily involved with special needs students. I would hope that some of the guidance, that some of the understanding is that there are lots of students who have a diminished capacity to function independently at home and complete homework assignments. And I hate to see certain students penalized because they don't have either the capacity to do it themselves or parents who are available to help them. And the parents being available to help students, I think is a big, big deal. I think we all know that that's a situation that students often find themselves in. And so I don't know how to word that in a policy or in guidance to a teacher, except for to say it in that way, to just, be mindful of that. A habit of mind or a habit of work is not necessarily something that is reflective of the student's desire to be a good student. It could be their own diminished capacity or diminished support at home. And I think that's very, very important when considering homework.
Thank you.
Maybe a extension of letter H. It talks about differences in family resources, possibly adding to.
Or student capacity
right.
to, right, yeah. I wonder if that's really happening. I'm not sure that's happening. I was happy to see that in there. I hope that is happening. I would, yeah.
Sean?
Well, first I want to say, I think there's some great examples of why we shouldn't be doing remote learning we're talking about right now. And then secondly, I think possibly G could cover some of this. Homework must be really difficult given the students' abilities to work independently. I think G could cover some.
Again, a great idea, but I'm not sure that in practice that's really happening. So maybe that's more, for me, evidence of the need for a policy. But then I hate to take away the freedom of teachers to teach in the way that they see is appropriate.
David?
Now, does this become like, if that's the case, every teacher's gonna have to independently tailor every student differently? For their needs?
If you're assessing, sorry.
No. I don't know how that affects that.
I would hope that that's what they're doing anyway, but anyway.
But
I think as a student that like struggled with ADHD from kindergarten on and homework was kind of the biggest part of that. I think it's more a function of how you, how homework is built into grading policy and how you weight homework. Because at the end of the day, it is the area where students are going to be at the biggest risk. There's a lot more external factors on homework impact on grades than any other assignment that they'll do between attendance, quizzes, exams, and assessments. Homework is the one with the most external factors. So I think if we just have policy about maybe not that homework's weighted the least, but the external factors on homework should be taken into consideration in grading.
Christine?
So I would say, yes, I certainly do hope that individual student needs are being considered when homework is assigned. Teachers have to do that, especially for students with disabilities. It's usually written into a plan that's legally required for them to accommodate. And it is the weighting of that is, I think, most important when it comes to grades. And also the stress for certain students, if there isn't at-home parent support, and if they do have challenges working independently, that can really be considerable. And not all teachers always understand that. And so if this is going to be written into a policy or a guideline, I just would want to include that kind of information, that it's not easy for all students to do that. Some students need help. Some students don't get the help that they need and have to be accommodating.
So what I'd like to do is take this back to the policy committee, if that's okay, and not vote on it until we've looked at this again at the policy committee to bring it back. Is that okay with everyone? So the motion though was for us to approve.
We never motioned.
Oh, there wasn't a motion. Oh, that's right. Okay. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll take that back to the policy committee to work on some more. That's okay.
But
We do have to,
could we do a motion for the second read of the thing?
Yeah.
That would be the one that we could do. Right. Okay.
I move we approve the policy IHBB, gifted and talented education.
Second,
any discussion on that one?
I just have a question. How is eligibility for gifted and talented programming determined right now?
We do 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, right? I don't know a lot about it, but 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, we've got an arts component, and they also do, is it the COGAT they do? Yes.
So it's based on a standardized
Yes,
assessment
yes,
and
yes.
teacher recommendation
Yes.
or? Okay.
Yeah, we have an entire process that we work through, yeah.
Okay,
for
and does
that,
it
yeah.
start with the standardized assessment or look
Yes.
at assessments? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering.
I apologize, that's the one area I don't know a lot about.
You answered the question. Thanks.
So just so that you all know, we did have some really good input from the GT people in the district. They came to both of the meetings that we discussed this, and they really gave us some good information and some, their ideas and thoughts about this policy, which was really helpful for us. So is there any other discussion or questions? Okay,
All right, Kristen,
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
and Esme,
Yes.
and Eric.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have a first reading for policy GBGE, return to work and light duty assignments. Any comments or discussion on that one? We don't vote on this one because it's a first reading. We'll take your comments and questions back to the policy committee and.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. Just so you know, this is not a mandated policy from MSMA, but we chose to bring it forward because we actually get credits on our insurance bill by having this policy in place. So knowing we get a kind of a refund with that credit, it made sense to us to put it in and have it so that we get the credit for it. So it's the standard policy that we got from MSMA. And again, I know it's a first read, but just want you guys to know kind of why we're doing it. So.
Any questions or discussion on this one? So we'll take it back for a second read. Okay, the next item again is another discussion on another policy, and this policy came up for discussion tonight because last week we had a staff member talk to us about this policy, which is the drug and alcohol use by student policy. The fact that there was some question as to whether or not the policies were outdated and the policy was not aligned with best practice. So we just need to talk about that before we bring it back to the policy committee, because again, we didn't want to be the only ones making the decision about this. So reading through the policy, are there any concerns that people have, changes that you think that we need to make to address the concerns? Sean?
I guess I'm wondering it was last reviewed in 2021. So what is out of date? I'd like to know. I guess I'd like to make it as strict as possible because I don't want drugs in my children's school or anyone else's children's school. So if you're asking for input, that's where I'd like to go from.
David?
Yeah, what is a lookalike substance? What is that defined as?
Right, so anything that's presented, I'll use a case from another school that I was in. We had a student that came in and told some girls that they were ecstasy pills when actually they were just, I don't know, some over-the-counter sinus medication, but they presented it as this is ecstasy. So that's kind of a lookalike. That's what that means, is when you're kind of passing it off as something that it's.
See, and I want, like John said, as strict as possible.
Yeah.
But I wonder how, so you can penalize a student for having even fake stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to present it as.
But it's when they present it as this is something that it's not. That's when you're usually, you kind of are stricter on them.
Can I ask one more question with that?
Of course.
So if they brought in a bag of oregano.
Yeah.
And they said it was marijuana.
Yeah.
Even though you could smell it was oregano, they can be,
Right, penalized for that.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tyler?
I don't know how to frame this in a way, but I kind of disagree with the extremely strict stance. Because I think kids are dumb. Kids make dumb decisions. And this isn't in reference to distributing, which I think throw the book at kids for distributing, but for possession. If we throw the book at them, the data shows that they're more likely to do it again. That being super strict, kicking them out of school, denying them educational resources, it doesn't work. And I don't know how to have that in a policy sense, but I think we need to go back and look at how do we intervene on this, create real resources to intervene with kids early in the process and make sure that we find them alternatives so they're not turning to drugs. Because I think kicking them out of school when a lot of them are struggling with deep-seated issues is the wrong message to send them, because we isolate them more. We put barriers to them having a further education. And in a lot of cases, and not Miranda Cook, a lot of them end up getting referred to the criminal justice system. And that's the last thing I want the school system to do, is funnel more students into the criminal justice system.
Annie?
Well, I will just say, as far as the severity of the consequence, and without getting into specifics, the severity was directly related to beyond possession. So it was distribution essentially without getting, can't really say more. So I think in those cases, when we're talking about expulsions, it wasn't just students that were possessing. And I think as a parent and a school board member, I think our primary responsibility is to the student body. And I think sometimes where safety is an issue, we have to protect them first. And then second, we try to rehabilitate, we try to find measures, intervention, so that the student can successfully, safely join the student population. So.
Can I?
So-
jump in for just- Is it okay?
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I just want to talk a little bit about our procedures. Like, if it's a first offense, there is a procedure that we work through, and it does come with options. If it's a second or third offense, then obviously as we work up, then those consequences become more and more. But the administrators have some leeway, especially with the first offense. They could suspend up to 5 days, but they're going to look at whatever the situation is and make that call as to, like, for example, the student was forthright, this is what it is, I shouldn't have done it, shouldn't have brought it to school. Like, that factors into, are we throwing the book at them, so to speak, the full 5 days? Or are we going to back up a little bit and say the student's working with us, we're talking, it's going to be 1 day and it's going to be in school, it's not going to be out of school. So like there is some flexibility in how the administrators work. I don't want anyone to walk out of here and think that like we throw the book at them hard right from the get-go. A lot of it is circumstantial based on if the student works with us, if the family works with us, all that kind of stuff. There's some discretion that the administrator has when working with those students, and they follow our procedures within the framework of this policy. So, and one of the things is like, you could suspend for up to 5 days, or maybe the student agrees to take part in an educational experience around substance abuse, then they're not suspended. But again, if it's a second offense or a third offense, then the options are going to change as you go down through that. So I don't want people to think we're doing it willy-nilly here, but we follow our procedures within this policy to get there.
So I just wanted to say that if you look at the policy, under B is disciplinary action, and it says principals may suspend and or recommend expulsion. This is the policy. What Jay was talking about is the procedure, which is a difference. So what I'm asking is this policy something that we want to stay with, or do we want to change it? When I read this policy, thinking about my own experience, my own career, my role as a school board member, I thought this policy should stay exactly as it is. Maybe the procedures need to change, but I think what Jay was talking about is, yes, we follow this policy by these procedures. Do we need to look at the procedures? Maybe we need to look at that, but this is the policy right here. And I think it's fine the way it is. Christine, then Sean.
I like that it has the intervention piece in it, because I agree with Tyler, but I also agree with Annie when she says that our obligation is to the entire student body. I understand that. I think maybe a little bit too much about individual students at times. And so I appreciate that, and we'll add that to my, I'll remind myself to do that a little bit more often. And I think it should stay as is. I agree with you, Kathy, on that.
Sean?
So, I mean, I have a few comments, so a bunch of things that said, I mean, first, when I say we got to be responsible to all students. And when kids are bringing drugs on the bus, that's not okay to me with little kids on the bus. Things like that. There's got to be a consequence for people's action. I'm not a person that there's not. So there's got to be. I mean, when Deputy Day was here, it wasn't like he was talking about throwing the book at people. SROs, if you look at the programs, if you accurately look at the research, they actually try to help kids through these things. So I think that can be a resource that we don't currently have. The other thing I want to say is there's a reason why since we're talking about drugs, there's a reason why we don't use drug dogs in our districts. Our district, other districts do. I'm just going to bring that up. I'm going to open that can of worms.
I've used them in other schools that I was in.
We've used them here in the past, and I don't think there's any reason why we can't if we felt that we
Yeah,
needed to.
and then the last thing I have, yeah, I think the policy is fine. I mean, maybe the practices could be looked at. I don't even know what they are. So maybe if we could get a presentation on what those are, that could be helpful to answer these questions. I mean, we
David?
only see the worst case scenarios, unfortunately.
David?
I know this might be a crazy question, but every kid entering the school, very first day, gets this policy, right? And they know the rules.
It's in the handbook, I
It's
believe.
in the handbook, and it's too bad that some of them forget, but it's right there, and maybe we ought to maybe make sure they're very clear of this. And it's policy, we gotta follow it.
That's not a bad idea.
I know. It's like I said, it's a simple question, but it's right there in black and white.
Christine?
So I think that's a great idea because people are saying, and it seems that some people suggest that there is a greater incidence of drugs in schools. I don't know any of the data, but if people are saying that, and if this is a policy that we think students might forget, then I do think highlighting a couple of the policies, even though they get the handbook, I mean, I never read my cell phone contract and I click okay every time. And I just wonder if it's really worth going over and saying, because the lookalike thing, that surprised me. It's like, wow, that's okay.
Something to add to that, sorry. So when my son that signs up for his hockey program, they give us the policy, how they're expected, to act on the ice, and they sign it. And I go over with him, and I have my 7-year-old sign it. Can we give this to families, pointing it out, asking for maybe the guardian parents family to sign it? Is that something we're able to do? So show that they've read it, they've seen it, this is what we expect. Is there any legal
Seriously.
implications of that?
They already.
I
do
believe
that.
there's a behavior,
They do sign it.
there's some kind of a behavior
Is this included?
contract. I'm not sure exactly what's included
And this
in
might
that.
be 5 years out of date, but I remember every year we had to sign a student handbook,
Okay,
every
Okay.
year.
okay. Well,
I'm
I
not
think
sure
the
where that's
handbook,
at.
again, going back to
Yeah,
what,
starting, I
Dean
think,
said.
sixth grade packet, starting in sixth grade, first day packets, I think all students are required to sign it.
Yeah, it's the code of conduct, I
Yeah.
believe was what it was. I
And
don't know
I'm
if that's
pretty sure
starting at
this
what
policy.
grade?
Six.
six. I'm not sure if that's still in, but we could find out.
Yeah,
And I think even, I mean, going back to what Christine said, signing the handbook is, that's a lot of reading. So maybe just to highlight this.
Which is why I think it used to be just the code of conduct,
Okay.
what's expected. And I think there's a bus code of conduct and
Okay.
there's different
All right.
things, so,
I've got
but
sixth
we can
grade.
look into that. Okay. Okay, anything else on that? Thank you for this help for the policy committee, everyone. I appreciate it. Okay, the next thing we need to do is vote on the superintendent's contract, so. I'm going to read the motion. I move that we approve the recommendation from the RSU School Board for Superintendent Charette for a salary of $134,000 for the school year 2023-24 and to extend his contract through 24-25.
Second.
Is there any discussion? No discussion? Let's vote.
Okay, Kristen,
Yeah.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
yes,
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes,
Kelsey,
Yes.
and Eric,
Yes.
and Esme.
Yes.
Unanimous, thank you.
It's a vote. Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the resignation of Rosemary Baker, special education teacher at the middle school?
I move we accept the resignation of Rosemary Baker.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, you can vote.
Kristen.
Yeah.
David.
Yes.
Annie.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Betty.
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Kelty.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Eric
Yes.
and Esme. Yes. Thank you, unanimous.
Okay, now we're on to citizen comments. Do we have anybody that has signed up? Thank you. Adam? Adam, somebody. Sorry, I can't read you. I can't read the last name. Oh, I know Adam.
Adam Woodford Reedfield.
Woodford.
This is just an easy thing. A couple of years ago, ABS put in a bathroom down at the football field. With the hope that it would be accessible to the community. It is locked a ton of the time. It is locked during every sporting event except for except for like football and soccer, when we have large crowds. And we have a porta potty sitting adjacent for it that gets used a lot of the time, but really it's something that would really highlight that area. It's a beautiful area. It's a great recreational opportunity for Reedfield and the surrounding towns. It would be awesome if it's a budget issue, put the money in there to clean it or to take care of it, do something to it other than just to leave it locked up. It is so frustrating to all the times that we walk down there, and especially for the elderly people that walk down there. We have beautiful bathrooms and they have to use the porta potties. And the porta potties, I know last year we had a soccer tournament. Those porta potties overflew. I mean, it was disgusting how bad those porta potties were. And we had bathrooms that were right across from it locked up. So really, I'm sorry I'm so late in coming to you guys about this. If it's a budget concern, I don't know that it is. I don't know if it's a policy concern. Whatever it is for the board, open that space up. If you need help from the town of Reedfield, reach out. Reedfield is more than welcome. I'm sure the community is more than welcome to make a better use of that space and just with everything. And other than that, you guys are doing a great job. You're on my YouTube feed. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Adam. Adam, before you go, hold on.
Just so you know, we actually had a meeting last week.
Yep.
And that's what we're actually working on, is trying to get that situation taken care of, exactly what you said. So it's in the works.
We'll be
So
ready Saturday because tennis has a meet Saturday and can I ask if is it a liability issue?
part of it's, the biggest part of it is the cleaning issue. And I actually don't know if they've got it open and serviceable yet, but I'm gonna check with Sean on that. And I'll get right back to you if that's okay.
That's awesome.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. And that's the only person that signed up. Is there anybody online? Yeah, okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. My name's Jenna White. My daughter is a junior, graduating class of 2024. She spoke last week, Josephine Walker. And she is struggling with, how does she tell her siblings, her grandparents, and her step parents how they cannot come to graduation next year if it's held at Marinacca Community High School? Why was it only presented to us parents with two options, but there was also an outdoor option presented that is now off the table? I graduated from Marinacca in the class of 2000, along with my husband, Chad White, who is sitting in the audience right now. We had a bigger class of 124 that had no restrictions in that gym. I don't care if it's in the gym or outside. My daughter should not have to choose between which step parents can come, which siblings can come, and which grandparents that are in their 80s that can come. These kids have worked 12 years to graduate and deserve the respect of a graduation. They deserve to be honored in the same way. And I don't understand how the school board can even be considering that they have to pick and choose two people to come to their graduation. I don't understand it. I don't know where that number even came from. We can pack it with basketball fans. We can pack it with Winter Carnival. We can pack it with all of the grades in that gym, but we can't have anything outside. We have how many fields? And if that's not an option, can we please look at the Civic Center or the Armory to do so, so these kids don't have to pick and choose who comes to their graduation? They deserve their graduation. They don't deserve to say, I'm sorry, dad, stepdad, who has been with me for 8 months, since they were 8 months old, you can't come. Or their stepmom, who has been with them from 2 years old on, you can't come, but you can stand outside and take pictures with me. I really think the graduation option for next year really needs to be looked at hard. These kids deserve to have the graduation that they have worked so hard through a pandemic, through everything else that they deserve. And I just wish the school board would really hear the kids. Let the kids speak. My daughter spoke last week. That should have spoke more than what I'm saying right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jenna.
You're welcome.
Was there someone else that wanted to speak? Dane?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hey, everybody, it's Dane Wing from Manchester. I'll be real brief. This is just going to go back to the drugs talk real quick. For anybody on the board who doesn't know that there are drugs in the school, probably should lift up the blinders because there are, and there's a lot. The fact that an elementary school kid may have received a cookie from somebody else on the school bus is a giant issue. To begin the drug, whatever you want to call it, interdiction phase by being soft and gentle from the law enforcement world does not bode well. Typically, it's a harsh punishment to begin with, and they begin, as you said, to start working through the process with them. But I do not believe, and as you all know me by now, you do something wrong, there's a consequence, there's accountability. So I would ask you to please keep that policy, keep the procedures, and as long as they're holding kids accountable, and if the drugs are going down, the drug usage is going down, then we're doing something right. But my kid's going to middle school next year, and we don't want to have a problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Dane. Is there anyone else? No. Okay, on to the budget workshop. We're going to have some updates.
Yep, just very quick. I'll let them get passed out first and then so everybody has the papers in front of them. Oh, no, we need three
We need
more over
three
here.
more over here.
Hmm.
No. Just these three.
So what you're seeing in front of you is, based on the last meeting, all of the changes we talked about, what we added back in. So everything that we've kind of summarized, as of last week. So, again, if you're looking at the bottom row for the grand total, you'll see that the overall budget is up 7.63. Sorry, I
Yes.
put my glasses on. 7.63, which is a little over, just a little over $1.5 million, going forward there. So again, as you're looking at those, you'll see some of the numbers go up again. So like the operation of plant, that's where the SRO is. And, you know, we'll go through, but everything that you guys had decided on as of last Friday is in that number at this point, okay? Then the second page is the revenue sheets, just like last time. So again, based on the changes, you'll see what it all looks like. I'm not going to go through everything there, but the additional, yeah.
The only thing that changed from the last budget meeting on that would be the additional local.
Additional local. So, yeah.
And the same on the next.
So the fourth draft of the local dollar calculation. And you can see at the top part, the adjusted 6.97 with all of the adjustments that have been made through the EB 279, and then follow that down and you'll see kind of the breakup going across, and then what it means to each individual town is on the 1, 2, 3, 4th line up from the bottom there. So overall, we're up as a district 8.96%. And then you see the breakdown going across what that means per town then. So, and again, that's with all of the local money there. And the last page is the adult education budget. Again, because we do have to vote on that tonight as well. And again, that's pretty much, you'll see the, yeah, you can see all the numbers there, so. But we can certainly answer any questions that you may have before we get to the voting part. So last questions, comments, discussions.
David?
Yeah, I wasn't here last meeting, and the last one I had was the draft on March 22nd, 2023. We were at 7.86, but now we're at 7.63, which is good. What went down?
So we, just to clarify, on the 5th draft, we had gone down, and then the last meeting, we were asked to put the middle school ed tech, the teacher that got changed to an ed tech, we were asked to put that back to a teacher, so that brought it back up. And we also had the math and the lit specialist for Wayne were both reduced to 50%. Those, we were asked to bring those both back up to 100%. And then the math intervention ed tech at Mount Vernon had been taken out previously. And we were asked to put that back in because these are all directly related to student support.
And you probably hadn't heard, Dave, we all celebrated because our insurance rate came in at 0%, which again was another savings for us. So again, that's why the number looks a little funky, but with all of those changes, that's where we landed. So
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
Annie?
So on the first page of this draft, the 6th draft, the only article that changed is Article 2, correct?
That is
just,
correct.
okay.
Right. Yep.
All of those items hit
Right,
regular
right.
instruction.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Do we have any citizen comments about the budget?
I'm a Wheatfield resident and also an employee here at Maranicook High School. And I came here, I think sometime in March or February to listen to the SRO who came from Lawrence. And I did at the time express my concern, my opposition to having an SRO. And I am here again one more time. I know this is sort of crunch time. And I understand the SRO position still in the budget. I guess I just want to talk a little bit real quick. I just wrote down my thoughts to keep myself in line. I believe that Maranicook has some of the most caring professionals that I've ever seen. I've been in this community for over almost 30 years, actually more than 30 years, 33 years. And reading the paper and coming to events and now working here for 21 years, I find that the advisory program that we have here at the high school and the middle school also goes down to the elementary school. My two daughters went through the elementary school and the junior high and the middle school and the high school here. And I felt that caring came throughout everybody that we saw, from the custodians to the principals. And so I really appreciate that. And why I bring that up is because I really believe that it's the relationships that all of our staff are making with the students that are keeping it from necessary to having an SRO. I know I'm going to quote some research, and I mean, research has shown that an SRO does not improve gun violence in the schools. There have been several studies in the 2021, one done by the RAND Institute and the JAMA Network studies, and they have shown that they do decrease crimes within the schools, such as rape, robbery, and physical assault. And as far as I know here at Maranicook, we don't necessarily have that problem as far as I know. The JAMA Network study said that there is no association shown to having an SRO and deterring violence in the schools. I do think that there are schools who do need an SRO. I don't necessarily think our district needs to have one. Over the last few years, I have seen at the high school, there is a need for more school counselors. And I know politicians will say, that it's not about guns, but it's about mental health. And I absolutely 100% agree with them. I believe that we need to do more with mental health. I believe that the initial funding of an SRO and then the occurring annual cost of having an SRO could do better for our school district, hiring school counselors to work with students, especially students who have gone through the pandemic, who we're seeing are having a lot of difficulty. But we also mentioned that drugs start off with, there are situations in going with students' lives that are causing them to go towards drugs. And if we can get those students as young as even elementary school and get them the help that they need counselor-wise, I think that would be more beneficial than having an SRO. That's all I have. I just wanted to, again, state my opposition to it, and I hope you might reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Was there anyone else on the list? No. Okay. Okay, so is there any more discussion about the budget from the board? No? Okay, then we are going to vote. So we need a motion to vote on the 2023-24 RSU 38 budget as presented in the 6th draft.
I move that we approve $21,700,178.44 for the RSU 38 budget for 2023-2024.
Second.
Discussion?
All righty, Christine? Or excuse me, Kristen, I did it again.
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca. Yes. Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelty.
Yes.
Thank you. Eric
Yes.
and Esme.
Yes.
Unanimous.
So before we go to the next item on the agenda, I just want to thank the administrative team and all the staff members that worked so hard on this budget and came to us with your needs. And I hope that this will meet all of your needs. And again, thank you so much for all of the hard work and time that you've put into all this. We really appreciate it. So do we have a motion for approval of the 2023-2024 RSU 38 adult education budget?
Motion to approve the RSU 38 adult education budget as read.
Second.
Any discussion? Who seconded?
I did.
Becky, Rebecca, sorry.
All set already. Kristen,
Yeah.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Esme.
Yes.
Again, unanimous.
So the next motion we need is to call and approve the warrants. And so in your packet, you have the exact wording for the motion. Do I have somebody who will make the motion by reading the motion?
I move that the vote entitled "Vote to Call and Approve the Warrants for the Budget Meeting and Validation Referendum," and to authorize the notice of amounts adopted be approved in form presented to this meeting, and that a copy of said vote be included within the minutes of this meeting.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Okay. Kristen,
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca, Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Kelty,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Esme.
Yes.
It is again unanimous.
Awesome. So a few more things before we adjourn. I just want to remind everybody that you need to stay and sign all of these pieces of paper that I think somebody's gotten give to us. So don't take off yet before we all sign them. And Betty has been assigned to do the norms tonight. So we'll hear what Betty has to say about our norms for tonight.
I think that we did very well. We acted consistently with our community, our commonly held core values. We shared ideas. We did pretty good with sharing airtime, and as well as everyone speaking before someone goes again. There was a couple of times where that didn't happen, but we were solutions oriented. We listened openly to all opinions and possibilities to understand, and we respected each other by not interrupting. We agreed to disagree where necessary, and we were responsible for a positive tone of voice and body language.
Thank you, Betty. Very observant. It's great. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor, we have to do the roll. call. Don't forget, you can't leave yet.
Don't leave yet.
Till you sign.
Start signing.
Here comes Donna. To adjourn. We didn't go.
No.
Okay. You don't have to do the roll. call.
We don't.
Okay, so we're adjourned.
They're all the same.
Return.
We're adjourned.
Okay.